Hey everybody, it's Dave here. And while the season for the Vikings may have ended, that hasn't ended for us here at Climbing the Pocket. And with that, I'm going to pass it up to Jayson to introduce probably our newest show that will go on once a week for the next few months. Jayson?
All right. Well, here we are. It is, I guess sometimes as a Vikings fan, maybe our favorite season. It's draft season. We are here. We are ready. We are going to talk about, I don't know if it's all the prospects, but between now and the draft, we're going to go through every single team building strategy that we can think of, all the players that you might want us to pick, that you don't want us to pick. And we're going to go through them. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about some strategy. We're going to talk about, we might not talk about guards very often. David will keep us honest. He'll make sure we bring up the guards.
I love
He'll
the
make
linemen.
Sure we give them their love.
I love the linemen.
David loves the offensive line. But we're going to go through it. We're going to have a bit of fun with it. The most important part about this is that we're going to have fun. We're not going to take it too seriously. But before we get too deep into this, I'm Jason Brown. I'll be hosting. But, the talent, the man who'll be really giving us the analysis that we need is our man, Tyler Forness. How you doing? How you been? Talk to the people, man, before we get this thing going.
Oh, it is great to be here, guys. I'm really excited to continue to bring great draft coverage to Climbing the Pocket that our guy Jordan Reed started, and I hope I can follow in his footsteps in any kind of fashion. And I just want to anger all the people right away. Guards don't matter. Let's ride.
All right, let's do this thing. It's the first one. We had some tech we need to figure out. Bear with us. It's our first time doing all this. Shout out to the man David, whipped up this wonderful overlay for us real quick. So I'm going to hit start. We're going to see what happens. Hopefully we don't break the internet. But this one, we're going to keep it simple. 3 rounds, no trades. And yeah, giddy up. Let's go. All right. And
what site are we using to mock our drafts?
Things are moving. Let us see.
Tyler.
And we're going.
This is the draftnetwork.com and their mock draft simulator, which I have personally found to be the best of all the simulators out there. It takes the consensus rankings from all the great guys at the Draft Network, including our own Jordan Reed, and it does a really good job of trying to be as realistic as possible while still throwing some curveballs. Like, it's a simulator. A guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's guaranteed to go at 1, may go 6. Like, those kind of weird quirks happen just because of mathematics, but it's about as accurate as you can get, and that's why it is always my go-to.
Gotcha. They're hurting my feelings right now. I said we weren't going to do trades, and here it is. The simulator's teasing me right out the gate. We're being offered trades. I think anyone who knows me knows that my first inclination is always going to be trade back, get more picks, take more shots, but
there's no first rounder in that one.
We're going to decline. Mm-hmm. And so the players that we have on the board, Devonta Smith, wide receiver, Alabama, Zach Wilson, quarterback, BYU, Gregory Rousseau, edge, Miami, Trey Lance, quarterback, North Dakota State, Rashawn Slater. We'll just call him an offensive lineman. I've heard guard. I've heard tackle. For some reason, we have a running back here in the first round. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm going to have to talk to JR about these rankings because Lord knows we're not doing that. And I feel like that's enough options, Tyler. And there's some good ones in there. There's some decisions that maybe need to be made. Tyler, with the board as it is, where are you going with this pick?
Well, I think when it comes to mock drafts, first thing you have to decide is how you're going to approach the mock draft. And there are 3 different ways to approach it. All of them have merit, but in order to really understand the context of where you're going, you have to understand what you're doing. So the 3 different ways are what you would do, what should happen, and what you think will happen. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to approach this as what the Vikings will do. And let's just be honest, as much as we've been clamoring for it, as much as we really want it to happen, the Vikings are not going to take a quarterback, so we're not going to do that here tonight. We can approach another mock draft down the line where the Vikings do end up exploring that option. But it's our reality right now, as everything that we see, the Vikings are not going to move on from Kirk Cousins. So we need to approach things like that. So in reality, you have 3 players on the board right now that are worth picking, considering that we're not going to take a quarterback. You have Devonta Smith, the wide receiver from Alabama. Obviously, he's having a Heisman caliber season. It's likely that he could win the award on Saturday. But one of the tough things about Devonta Smith is he is a physical outlier. He's 6'1", 178 pounds. There just isn't any kind of data that says a guy that small can succeed in the NFL without incredible speed. Deshaun Jackson weighs under 180 pounds, but he's also a burner. Devonta Smith is an incredible technician. He's able to win at the catch point, run crisp, smooth routes, separate from corners with his route running. But when it comes to the NFL, if he plays up against a guy like Xavier Rhodes in his prime, can he succeed? Is he going to be able to beat that press coverage because he just doesn't have the frame to be able to absorb that kind of contact? It's something that you really have to think about. Then you have Gregory Rousseau, the edge out of Miami, 6'7", 265. Remember when Danielle Hunter was drafted by the Vikings in 2015? He had like little to no production and was just this freak athlete with all the traits in the world. That's Gregory Rousseau, but he had 15 and a half sacks last season at Miami. The guy has no plan as a pass rusher. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves developed, but he is an absolute freak. He can bend around the line. He can explode off the ball and get that really quick first step. You pair him with a guy like Andre Patterson who can teach him all the technicians, that can be absolute dynamite. Last one is Rashawn Slater. He's a really tough projection because he's only like 6'2" and a half. There are thresholds for offensive tackles when it comes to arm length. That threshold is usually around 34-inch arms. If you don't have that arm length, it's really hard for teams to justify playing you a tackle because there's so many speed rushers like Khalil Mack, Von Miller. You need to be able to have those long arms in order to kind of push them away and let a guy like Kirk Cousins climb the pocket. And I don't want to take a guard. My mantra is guards don't matter. Now, if you have great tackles and a great center, you can have average guards. That's all we need, average guards. Dakota Dozier is the worst guard I've ever seen. Ezra Cleveland played fine at times, but he's not a guard. He's a tackle. So you can't expect him to continue to play that position. I think you can address that in free agency. So in reality, we come down to 2 guys, Devonta Smith and Gregory Rousseau. Now, it's kind of a pick your poison here. Do you want to take that wide receiver 3 that we desperately needed since like the Brett Favre years? Or do you take that edge rusher to try and ease the pressure off Cameron Dantzler and Jeff Gladney to pair on the opposite side of Danielle Hunter? And here's the fun part about Rousseau. He got a lot of his production from the inside at Miami. So those stand-up looks, the double A gap, you can utilize Rousseau like that. You can utilize Rousseau kind of like John Randall was utilized at the end of his Vikings career. Defensive end, go inside, play 3 technique. You can have a lot of fun and be creative there. If Zimmer's going to be the coach of this team, you want to be able to give him chess pieces like that. So I think we should lean Rousseau here because he's going to be able to create that monster tandem with Danielle Hunter over the course of time. You have the best defensive line coach in the National Football League in Andre Patterson. And Luke Braun said it best last night when I was kind of chatting with him on Twitter. Freak athletes who can come in right away, give you production while they're still learning technique is fantastic. It's hard to beat somebody who can just come in and play right away and play well without having any real technical aspects to their game. So I would lean Rousseau with this pick, and you could start him right away. He's going to have some struggles, but he's going to automatically be better than everybody.
So Tyler, how do you feel about the comment? So we got a great comment in there that says that, a player like a Devonta Smith will likely never be seeing the cornerback one from the other team. With us having Justin Jefferson, us having Adam Thielen, he's never going to see, the top guy. And given what you said about his route running, does that maybe make you lean back, or is it just that his size and him being such an outlier and it being the first round is kind of pushing you away from making a choice like that, regardless of how good he's looked on the field thus far?
One of the unique parts about what the Vikings have in their wide receiver room is Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson can really play across the board. They can play the X, Y, and Z. So you can really take whoever you want, and they'll be able to slide in and fill a role. If you want to take a prototypical X, you can do that. If you want to take a slot guy, you can do that. And you won't have to worry about your other two guys because they'll be able to settle in at the other positions. And the one thing that worries me about Devonta Smith is it's the size. Like, he's dominating SEC coverage. But college coverage is just different than the NFL. And without the historical precedence of somebody his size, I'm not saying he won't succeed, and I'm not saying there is no path to being a successful receiver. For all we know, he could overcome all the odds pretty easily and become a Hall of Famer. But the weight, the size, it really scares me. And quite frankly, I think the NFL is going to feel the same way. And this is also an incredibly deep wide receiver draft. Last year was historically good. This year's better. And you can take a guy in round 3. Tylan Wallace at Oklahoma State. If he doesn't tear his ACL last year, there's a chance he goes round 1. Now with how deep this draft class is, he could be wide receiver 10. He could be drafted in the middle of the 3rd round, and he can be your deep shot guy. He's a guy who can go up, get the ball, has great body control in the air. He's just going to moss people. Like, those are the kind of guys who can get in round 3. Stephon Diggs in 2015. It's that kind of wide receiver class. You can find a guy like that. So
okay, so that is it. The pick is in. Tyler has convinced me. We are going with Gregory Rousseau. And David is
happy.
Thrilled. David is thrilled. David, as Tyler was going through that and you saw Gregory Rousseau's name up there, you were giddy.
Yes, I was
David.
giving.
Why were you so excited about the prospect of us bringing in a player like a Rousseau to this Vikings team?
Because me being more old school, you win and die by your trenches for the most part. Yes, you need weapons on both sides of the ball, but a top flight edge rusher to pair with Danielle Hunter should step up the Vikings defense from where it finished like 27th this year. I haven't looked, but it's in that range, to closer to the top 10 we're used to. You pair a top 10 defense and a top 10 or top 5 offense together, and the outlook is a heck of a lot brighter than it was this year. This year on the defensive line, there was the total starting guys, if you combine their sacks, still didn't reach what Danielle Hunter got the previous year. We need to up those pressures and those sacks. Sacks are just an exponent of pressures tremendously. We're looking at the numbers going into this last game, and I think we were 120 pressures down from the previous year. That's going to be important when we play who we play in the 21 season, which won't be easy. We're playing 2 of the toughest divisions out there. So, besides our own and Aaron Rodgers. That's why I'm happy with the Gary Rousseau pick.
All right. Well, we are back up once again. And through this whole thing, while you were talking, my heart was being broken. All these trade offers coming in, but we are letting them go. We are back once again. I'd also like to point out that Vikings Twitter darling did not go until the 2nd round in this one here.
Which one is that? Trey Lance?
The interior. No.
Oh.
Tyler knows who I'm talking about. The interior lineman who's going to solve all of our problems. Wyatt Davis did not go until the second round in this here mock. We did not do this. This was the Draft Network's predictive board. And what I've also noticed is as time is going on, it seems as though people are getting more into the process. Across almost all the boards I'm seeing, he just continues to drop further and further down. I don't know if it's a positional value thing, if people are picking his game apart thing, but he was the sexy name very early in our season, and he continues to seemingly lose steam. But here we are. We've made it through. No second round pick.
Which is sad.
Round 3. It is very sad. I hope that we trade back. If the board looks like it did today when the Vikings are up, the Vikings should be able to get a haul in trading back for someone coming up for one of those quarterbacks. So if we're not taking one, hopefully people coming up to get one sets us up for a good draft, not just this year, but also in future years as well. But here we are. We're back on the clock, round 3. And let's just talk about some of the names that are here. So we got Marvin Wilson. We got Jackson Carman. We got Darius Stills, Tevin Jenkins, Deontay Brown, Christian Barmore, Javon Holland. And I guess before I go too much further down the list, David, I'll start with you on this one. So we started out, like you said, you're an old school guy. We started off with some trench warfare. We got someone in there to make us less anemic when it comes to the pass rush. We're back up again. Looks like we got some good guys who are also in the trenches on the board right now. Are you looking to continue to fortify on both sides of the line for the Vikings, or are you looking to get a little further away from the ball? Maybe look to replace an Anthony Harris. Maybe look to add some depth to the wide receiver room. Help me understand. Like, what are you thinking about at this point? Or are you still maybe even thinking about, the offensive line?
The offensive line will always be an option, but I also look for value. A third round choice is a perfect spot to take a top guard, interior offensive lineman. I don't have any issue with that. But we also need, I suspect Anthony Harris will walk. He is a free agent this year. He didn't play extremely well at all. I expect him to walk. We're going to need some sort of safety to play next to Harrison Smith next year. Whether that's somebody like Josh Metellus on the roster, I doubt it. We're going to need somebody there. That's a skill position over on the defense, and we all know Mike Zimmer will love to influence defensive picks. On the offensive side, I would want to see who's left for wide receiver, and if there's somebody that could play that wide receiver 3. However, I don't think that's as important when we have Irv Smith and Conklin and other receiving threats, Dalvin Cook catching a ball that we could use. I want the biggest bang for our buck once we get to this point. Now, is that interior guard to replace Dozier? Because Dozier was, 68th out of 68 guards or whatever. He's horrible. And an improved guard play would help Bradbury, but I think the route to go for that improved guard is if we can go free agent, whether we have the money or not. Say we do that, go the guard free agent route, then I'd probably go safety if that guy fits the mold that Zimmer's going to.
All right, so Tyler, David is throwing him out there, giving some options from an overall team building perspective. What are your thoughts here? You've seen the board. What are the players that you're interested in based on what you're seeing here?
So this is a really interesting draft for the Vikings. There are so many good pieces on this team, yet there's a ton of needs across the board. One of the nice parts about where the Vikings sit, a lot of their needs, this is a really good draft class. It's a really good offensive line class, a really good wide receiver class, a pretty good corner class, a really good edge class. You can really go best player available with your first 3 picks, and you'll be able to get good value, good players, and you're not going to have to force anything. And I think we've really learned our lessons with guys like Christian Ponder, Troy Williamson, Laquan Treadwell. Don't force picks. Garrett Bradbury, we're all torn on him because we could have had Jeffrey Simmons in that spot. Jeffrey Simmons went one pick after Garrett Bradbury. I'm sorry, Garrett Bradbury is just not a round one caliber player. I don't buy it. He's fine. I think he can still be really good, but we could have a dominant 3 technique. And we saw that in the Tennessee game, how he just ate Bradbury's lunch time after time. And I think I want to try and get another player of that ilk. Right now, when we look at the board, our best players available are interior defensive linemen. This is going to be really the heart of the class because there really is no top-end guy. It's a bunch of dudes who have potential, but there's really nothing truly elite about him. Marvin Wilson's the hot name. Does he have the pass rush in order to grow and become a great player at the NFL level? Christian Barmore, raw. He's rawer than a Pittsburgh Blue State. Physical, athletic freak. But he needs time. He needs good coaching. And I think this would be a great pick for Minnesota right here because you're going to have him next to Daniil Hunter, Michael Pierce, now Gregory Rousseau. He's going to have time to really learn the position. He'll be afforded to make mistakes because of who he's playing with. He's going to see a lot more one-on-ones, and he's going to be able to learn on the fly. I think Barmore should be the pick here. You can talk about Deontay Brown, the interior offensive lineman out of Alabama. I think this is a real sweet spot for taking guard. Of the top 10 paid guards, and you can find this article from me at Climbing the Pocket, 4 of them were drafted in the 3rd round. Like this is a great spot to take a guard because you can find some really good players. PFF just released their all first team offensive line today. The highest ranked one in the interior, Damian Lewis, 3rd round pick from the Seahawks. There's value here.
Mm-hmm.
But there really isn't an offensive guard that I would want to take. Tevin Jenkins is good, but at the same time, I don't think that you would want to take a tackle here because you just spent a 2nd round pick on Ezra Cleveland last year. Now, if you take Christian Garrison round 1, I'm all for that because he is the perfect zone blocking scheme tackle, and he's a really, really good pass protector. And I think that's the key, Jason. He's a good pass protector. He's not going to be a liability. He's not going to be like Riley Reif and just destroyed on speed rushers. He's not going to get bull rushed to oblivion. He's going to be capable, and I think that's really important. I think Barmore fortify that 3 technique position, something we haven't had since Sharif Floyd's botched surgery, and let's hope that we can really move the needle here.
Okay. I am sold. Here we go. Christian Barmore is the pick. And, we're making Dave's heart sing.
Yeah.
Two
big bellies. Yeah, baby.
Dave is loving it. Oh, no.
Here's the nice part,
guys, I know you want us to move up, but we can't do it.
The nice part about this right now is all these mock drafts can be different, and they can all be really good because of what the Vikings are looking for and what best player available is. You can take best player available and still fill needs. We're not like this complete team where you have 3 great wide receivers. Oh, let's take a 4th in round 1 just because it's there. Like one of the reasons the San Francisco 49ers, the Jim Harbaugh era, they had all these 2nd round picks, and they just kept throwing them at running backs who were hurt. Lattimore, and then what was it? The Oregon kid, I think it was Michael James. Neither one of them did anything, and it was just wasted picks. Utilize those for good players, and I think the Vikings will be able to do that here.
I love it. All right, well, we are coming back around, and there wasn't that much time between picks, so Tyler, I'm throwing it right back to you. On the board, we got Tevin Jenkins, Javon Holland, Walker Little, Hunter Long. I'm going to mess this name all up. Hamza.
Nasruddin.
I'm not saying the last name. Rashad Weaver. And a host of other players. What positions, what players, who are you targeting around this point in the draft?
All right, well, when I look at the board right now, we just talked about not taking Tevin Jenkins. I think he can be a really good player. I just don't think with what the Vikings are looking for and what they have, that Tevin Jenkins would be a smart pick. it's never a bad idea to have too many offensive linemen, but it just feels like unless you're going to take a true upgrade over Ezra Cleveland, Tevin Jenkins doesn't make much sense. Walker Little.
What are your thoughts on, because a lot of teams will at this point start looking at tackles that they potentially can move inside. Like Justice has written about how the Packers are pretty well known for finding athletic tackles that maybe fly under the radar, moving them inside. Is that something that you'd want to see the Vikings do? Like you said, they're looking for a player in the 3rd round. Could you see them potentially maybe taking someone who played tackle in college and moving them inside? Or are you more looking for someone who is just an interior lineman and they're going to keep him at interior line and that's what he's going to do? What are your thoughts on kind of how that goes and how that tends to play out? Because many teams have kind of many different ways they go about that.
I think if you played tackle at a high level in college, you can play guard in the NFL. And one guy I really look at in the 4th round range is going to be Iowa's Elaire Jackson. 2 things. One, Iowa players don't bust. I don't understand it. They just come into the NFL and they just play good football. It's something that Kirk Ferentz is doing down there, or maybe it's just the fact that they're eating all the ethanol in the world. But Elaire Jackson was getting the offensive tackle hype, and then Tristan Wirfs hit Bruce Feldman's freak list, and he had that phenomenal year, and Elaire Jackson just kind of got left in the dust. He's a really good player, a good technician, and he's probably going to be a guard at the NFL level. You slide him inside, and I think he can be really good, but I think you're going to use one of those 4 4th-round picks for him. The way this board sets up right now, I think you could take Rashad Weaver and get even more edge depth and just load up on that one area. But I'm looking at Hamza Nasruddin. He's kind of a tweener. He's like 6'4", 215. He's going to play downhill really well. And I think he can complement Harrison Smith. And eventually, when you choose to move on from Smith, because his skills are going to deteriorate, I mean, just look at Malcolm Jenkins. Mm-hmm. He was this great player at the Eagles, and now he's just kind of a dude. I think if you take Nasruddin, you let him grow, you can utilize him in kind of like an Anthony Barr role, especially if Anthony Barr doesn't end up on this team anymore. He can play that coverage linebacker, and you can utilize him in so many different ways. He's really raw, and he's going to need some time, especially with what Zimmer asks his defensive backs to do. But the least important position, and this comes right out of Zimmer's mouth, on that defense is next to Harrison Smith. You give a 3rd-round pick who's raw with some talent the ability to grow, adapt, figure out how to play in the NFL next to Harrison Smith, and eventually he can take over and be that guy.
There it is. So
I'm cool with that. First 2 days, defense.
And I think we need to also temper expectations. I don't necessarily think that the Vikings will go all defense. I think you just got to look at the board, look at what your needs are, look at how you have your players stacked, and just go from there. If it ends up being all defense, awesome. If it ends up being all offense, that's okay too. This is an offensive-driven league, and you need to score points. The Vikings can score points, but only when their backs are against the wall. So if you add even more weapons to that offense, give them fortification pieces on the offensive line, you can go all in. But I think this team really needs to focus on best player available. Just get good players into the building and figure it out.
Here we go. So we got a Zimmer draft in our first run through this here. David, what are your final thoughts? Defense, trenches. Like I see you over there, you're giddy. You can barely contain yourself. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, like I said, if you increase the defense from where it is this season in 27-ish range, and sure, some of that's going to be guys coming back healthy. That's going to bump it up. You pair that with a top 10 to top 5 offense, things will be bright and getting brighter. And that's what we want. So I would be happy with this. I know some people would blow their tops, but I would be happy with this going forward. And then we hit day 3 of the draft, and then we'll go on from there to fill the rest of the holes.
All right. And day 3 is coming. We will get to those later on. We have plenty of time because we're going to be doing this every Monday. And will Gary Kubiak be back? We do not know. Some of the names that we talk about a lot in the group chat, in the DMs, are names like Arthur Smith from Tennessee. I am a Dable fan. I like how aggressive he is with the pass game on early downs. So the OC from Buffalo is kind of my guy. Tyler, David, who are some names that you would like to see if Kubiak does indeed move on?
I think you got to look at the running and passing game coordinators out of San Francisco. Same Shanahan tree, but they also worked under Kyle Shanahan. So some of the things that they do are going to be even more creative. Mike McDaniel, Mike LaFleur. McDaniel has had a really rough road. He's had some alcohol issues. He has seemingly overcome that, and it looks like he is poised to really be able to have success and be able to overcome those personal demons, which for any human being overcoming personal demons, fantastic, and I applaud them. But to be able to do that with the kind of stress and pressure that it comes from the NFL level, and a lot of people turn to alcohol when it comes to this kind of heavy stress. If he is really ready and has overcome those demons, I think he'd be a great fit because of some of the things that Kyle Shanahan does, those leak routes, like those little weird wheel routes where you get George Kittle open by like 15 yards up the seam. Like the concepts that they run are just stupid. And bring that here because this offense can be very successful, but I just feel like they've been stymied creatively. They're not utilizing motion. They're like 31st in the league in motion. Like, that's ridiculous. Utilize it. Get these guys moving at the snap. It'll help Dalvin Cook. It'll help Kirk Cousins read the defense. Like, it's just all simple, elementary stuff. And I think you bring in a guy who worked directly under Kyle Shanahan with the expertise of what the system is. And Kyle's the most creative at it. Like, it's just what it is. I think.
David, how about you?
That sounds absolutely wonderful. But what I see is most likely going to happen is the nepotism continues. Gary Kubiak will go probably into an advisory type role again, and Clint Kubiak gets promoted to OC. And hopefully Clint has learned enough over the years and the time away from Gary that we can get something like Tyler just described. But knowing how things work or tend to work in Minnesota, I suspect Clint Kubiak, if Gary retires or semi-retires, will be our next OC.
All right.
It's not my first choice, but that's what I suspect.
Vikings fan through and through. So great question from the comments. And that is the show. We will be back doing this in some form or fashion every Monday from now until we hit the draft. So viewers, thanks for the great question, great comments. Thanks for sticking with us. Listeners, thanks for listening. And we will be back soon. David, play the music.
By all means, it's time. And we'll see you guys later this week. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.